Okay, something's funky here.
Recorder. Okay.
Hi, Allison.
Hello.
Give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, I have 7 o'clock. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Altamont Planning Board meeting. Today is June 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Due to the COVID-19 virus, this meeting is being held remotely and all aspects, including audio and video of this meeting, are being recorded. At this time, I'd like each planning board member to introduce themselves. We probably know how we do this by now. So unmute yourself, and Barb, if you want to start, please.
Hi, Barb Moldfelder.
John Huke.
Steve
Connie
Caruso.
Drew. Sorry, Steve.
That's okay. Steve Caruso.
I'm Connie Rue.
Dan Head, alternate.
Okay, I think we got everybody. Also joining us tonight, we have our legal counsel, Allison Phillips, Lance Moore, our building inspector, Ginger Hanner, our planning board secretary, Dean Whalen, our village board trustee, and I think I see Brad Grant, our engineer, is here. I don't know if Jeff is here. I know he wasn't feeling well, went home early today, so I doubt he's on, but I think we have the important players here. No offense, Jeff, if you are on. I'd like to make some opening comments. There will not be opportunity for public comment tonight. And one more thing I'd like to bring up yet again is the planning board cannot accept emails or letters or comments from the public after the public comment period is closed. It doesn't matter what we perceive that letter to be. We can't accept it. It's not acceptable. Also, we can't have people walking up to us in post offices and Stewart's and other public places trying to get us to talk about any application that's before our board before a decision has been made on it. So, that's not going to be tolerated. It's not acceptable. You cannot try to influence us one way or another. That's just not fair to the applicant. It's not fair to the board member. And I'm sure if you were in our position, you would want someone to do that to you. So after saying that, let's get started with the agenda. The topic of discussing tonight is Stewart's Shops application for a special use permit. Chuck, you've updated your plans since our last meeting. If you want to do a quick rundown on what you did change, we'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Sure. What I'll just do is I'll go through the cover letter that I provided. There was a supplement to that that was provided by Miller Mannix. If you have any questions, Leah is on the line. I think Leah's, the main emphasis of Leah's letter was to just indicate that, you know, the 1979 village filing for the historic designation did not single out one architecture type, and the zoning code does not reference, you know, one architecture type, particularly not Victorian. So the Stewart's building as proposed does take elements of some other buildings that are throughout the village. And in attachment 1, we've kind of provide a comparison of those buildings to what we've brought into our building. So as you can see, and I'm assuming you see my screen.
Yes.
On T1, little things, we removed the gooseneck lighting and have replaced it with a solid LED bar. There was some confusion about the sign at the last meeting. Again, this sign does rotate or scroll to the price and then stays affixed at that price. It's not a constantly changing message board.
Chuck, why did you change that from the gooseneck light into an LED bar light?
It was just an internal switch. We felt that it cleaned up the sign. It didn't change the light emitted. So we can go back if you want to, but there's no gooseneck lighting anywhere else on the site. So we just removed it.
Is there an LED bar light anywhere else on the site?
There's not, but we had to light the price somehow. And that's how we saw it best to do. From our perspective, it doesn't matter gooseneck or the LED bar.
I mean, we can take a poll on this a little later. I'll make a note of it, but so I don't want to hold you up, but you know, I think that's something we should come back to.
Yeah, I mean, with any of these, you can do them now or do them later. Obviously, that's the board's discretion, but I'll continue to go and let you.
Well, what does the board think about that? Gooseneck or LED bar light on the sign? Barb?
Either way, I think that the LED would be fine.
Connie?
I don't have a strong opinion. The LED or the gooseneck seem to focus more of a spotlight on the sign versus the LED overhead. I would imagine is more like what you'd find in a shop or a store. But I guess without seeing the lighting difference, it's sort of hard to tell if I prefer one to the other.
Okay. John?
Well, if Chuck says it emits no greater light, that the light emittance would be the same, I don't have a preference. It looks cleaner without the gooseneck. However, I would go with whichever has a lower light emittance.
Steve?
I sort of lean the same way as John. I think the gooseneck would, the LED probably is a little bit more of what I would prefer to see, but I have no feelings one way or the other, which is one is worse than the other. It's whatever the group.
All right, then let's leave it like it is for now. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's fine.
That was easy.
The building elevations have been altered to incorporate a bluestone veneer Again, in attachment 1, this is the closest stone we could take from the Homefront Cafe. I'm also pretty sure it's close to the small retaining wall that's in Orsini Park. So the blue stone has been chosen as the stone. We then incorporated that in the freestanding sign and the canopy column, the canopy columns at the gas pumps. We did incorporate scalloped shingle in the peaks of the dormers. We removed the smaller brackets and placed larger brackets where each column meets the roof, and dental blocks along the roof rake. There was some discussion at the May 18th meeting or the meeting before about the cupola, and we did add a note to indicate that there will be no lighting for the cupola, so no internal illumination. There are no changes on S1 or S2. S3, we did indicate that the wood frame dumpster would replace the white vinyl. We eliminated the plantings along Altamont Boulevard and installed the benches. One of the things I think will come up again, or as the board desires, we can handle now. Anything on the northern or outside of the dashed line really requires New York State DOT approval. So, this is our site plan, but anything that outside of that may require a use and occupancy permit from the Department of Transportation. So anything that we include or show may or may not be permitted under their guidelines. And there's a fair amount of discretion that they have. We have submitted the phase 2, and I believe maybe even phase 3 of the New York State DOT permit. In the correspondence shared for the last meeting, they are fine with the access configuration as proposed. And we're down to kind of just the details for them to issue the permit. So one of the things I think there's a little bit of a concern with was the benches, as we would like to use the benches. And again, we cited or selected benches that are seen in Orsini Park or outside the Park Row Apartments. These benches may or may not be permitted under the DOT permit. So if the board would like to address the screening along Altamont Boulevard, I think now would be the time to discuss it.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to do something as far as screening. I had sent you an email, you and Dan an email the next day, that we need to put some type of vegetation screening back in there so that we don't have this huge expanse of macadam. So I know Dan did some research. He tried to reach out to your version of Allison as opposed to our version of Allison. And I don't think they connected. Dan, can you speak to that?
I did not connect with Allison today. She wasn't in the office. She said she'll be in tomorrow. I did summarize my recommendations in an email last night. I don't know if you got that, Chuck.
I did get it. I think,
Okay.
so for those who didn't receive a copy of it, what Dan is effectively requesting is that the plantings that were proposed along where it says proposed wing curb, for lack of better terms, be shifted to the outside edge along Altamont Boulevard. The only problem.
No, that's not what I'm suggesting. No, the idea was that if you take the sidewalk as shown, where it's parallel with the curb along Altamont Boulevard, move the sidewalk behind the curb, basically getting rid of the snow storage area between the curb and the sidewalk. It would be the same cross-section as you find on the north side of Altamont Boulevard, right across the street. That provides more room behind the sidewalk and the Stewart's lot for the benches and plantings. Does that make sense?
I thought that was an excellent idea, Dan.
The handicap ramp at the eastern end of that curb extension there would still have to have the 5-foot landing at the top for ADA requirements, and then the sidewalk can taper 45 degrees and then go right behind the sidewalk, the length of that extension, and then, taper back in when it gets towards the intersection. And that would provide more room between the benches there for plantings and in that area. And I know it would be contingent upon DOT approval. I'm aware of it.
You said that in your email, yeah.
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 But it's shift the sidewalk to the curb, and that would provide more room behind the sidewalk and the Stewart slot to put some plantings in there with the benches, and put the benches on concrete pads, so you're not having any plantings trampled down by people walking through there. So
if, just to make sure I understand it, take the sidewalk and move it to the curb, like the
Yes.
red arrow shows?
yes,
And then by moving the sidewalk closer to the curb, install the plantings behind this row here?
yep.
Okay,
Yeah, the sidewalk still has to come back out to the right of that arrow to meet the handicap ramp correctly, the landing, because you still need to meet the ADA requirements. But it provides some room in between the benches there, for plantings.
okay. As long as the board is under the understanding that would be a contingency that DOT would have to sign off on, I'm okay with that. I do think it likely affects our timing because we're at the point where DOT is getting ready to issue the permit. But I will go back to them with the change. So just so we're all on the same page, it will be shifting the sidewalk closer to the curb along Altamont Boulevard and putting the plantings in here. Now, Dan, I know you didn't get a chance to speak with Allison. In my conversation with her, she was pretty reliant on the junipers just because of the salt tolerance.
Right.
I don't think that the arborvitae would be an appropriate use here because they get so tall.
No, arborvitae would not work. I think you have to keep something lower, maybe not as low as a blue rug juniper, but Andorra junipers or something like that. But you need to keep shrubs low enough so they don't affect the sight distance with anybody pulling out of the driveway there.
Okay.
Is the board okay with this proposed change as far as plantings are concerned?
I am.
I am.
I am.
Yes.
I think that was everybody. All right. Just Chuck, can you, I have the benefit of knowing who Allison is. Could you just tell the board? and
So
everybody else
Allison
on the phone?
Yovine is, you'll see on the landscape plan, Allison Yovine is a registered landscape architect with MJ Engineering.
Okay, thank you.
So as the board relied on Dan, Chuck relies on Allison.
Okay. I just know that not everybody might have the benefit. The rest of the people in the meeting don't know exactly who we're talking about. So I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
That was the only revision along Altamont Boulevard though, except for the note from Dan that the benches be placed on concrete pads. Is that correct?
That's the only change I saw on Altamont Boulevard.
Okay.
Chuck, just one question. Would the temporary planters still require use and occupancy from DOT standpoint if on their land?
There were no, I'm going to switch to the photometric plan. There are no temporary planters because the concern was raised by the board to go back to permanent plantings. So the junipers would replace any temporary boxes that would be installed And the benches would just be placed on the outside edges of the sidewalk.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, outside edges of the curb. Our curb. So since we're here already, the landscape plan, which is S8 or S7, has been modified, pretty substantially. It includes the dogwoods that were requested. It went to 2 deciduous trees in the southeast corner, and then the arborvitae was used for screening the fence along the 111 Helderberg property line. This obviously is the minimum of 6 feet. And then in the 16-foot range where there's separation, those are where the deciduous trees have been planted. While we're talking about 111 Helderberg Ave, I know that I saw Carol join the conference. Her and I have met a number of times. And while we kind of agree to disagree on certain elements of the project, we have come to I think an understanding, and will mitigate, as neighbors would, some of the concerns she's expressed, particularly those concerns outside site plan issues. And she has been pleasant. I think that the exchange was very mutual on both sides.
Carol has been pleasant throughout this whole thing, and I thank her for that. She's one of the people that have been polite and pleasant and kind and understanding.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about Carol, let me just ask you a couple of things. The condensing unit that we can't move,
Yep.
is that the one that's the quiet climate too?
It is, yep. And the cut sheets were provided in this
Right.
submission, which were omitted in previous submissions.
And I looked that up, and I saw that in an audiology lab that the quiet climate 2 lowered the decibels from 57 to 37, which is equivalent to a library conversation. Have you heard anything like that? Has anybody heard that?
I mean, I measured them in other situations. I mean, the benefit in this site, as I, went through repeatedly, is the condensing unit sits in an approximate 3-foot hole with its back to a stone retaining wall. And then atop that sits an 8-foot fence. I think the cedar fence being solid makes the fence a more, a better barrier, a better buffer than the vinyl would have, because the vinyl components would have been hollow. So I do think that that's favorable. But as I expressed, to her and to the board previously, the only other location for that condensing unit is on the Helderberg Ave side. And I think on that side, you do not have the benefit of the 8-foot fence. So you do have a segment of the retaining wall, but you do not have the fence. And then you're simultaneously introducing it to the picnic area and the funeral home and all of the other Helderberg Ave residents. So I do think that these are the best locations for the condensing unit and the HVAC, and why we have not, moved them since the original submission. When we were asked to move the condensing unit for the cooler, there's obviously much more room along that unit to do so, and we did. But here we could not and will not.
Is there going to be any kind of sound blanket or anything on those units?
Again, they're approximately 18 inches tall, and the retaining wall is 3 to 4 feet. So we were not proposing any other mitigation because they essentially sit in a hole.
Okay, all right. While we're still talking about Carol, I just want to make sure I get all of her questions out there. I'm sorry I'm taking over here, but she.
Hey, Deb?
Yes.
Deb, before we move on, before we move on to Carol's other questions,
Yeah.
I did have another question on the noise. We were talking about the condenser units, and I saw we got the cut sheets for the HVAC units, but I did not see the decibel ratings for those in the submission.
It wasn't in the data. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
everything you ever wanted to know about that unit except how noisy
Exactly,
it was.
except the sound data.
Yeah, TBD means to be determined, which tells me they haven't
Right.
tested it yet. Kind of surprising.
Chuck?
Again, these are the cut sheets provided by the manufacturer. This is not a Stewart's generated item.
I don't think we're asking who generated them. I think we're asking what the decibel levels would be.
Would not that be something you can get from the manufacturer? I find it hard to believe you can.
Is there a way to test decibel ratings, like at your other stores that use these same units?
Yeah, I
To be
have
able
done.
to test?
Yep, I've done exactly that. I used a handheld decibel rating. The problem is that when you test decibel ratings in other locations, you're not providing the same mitigation as you are in this situation. So I could tell you that at roughly 20 feet, the average is like in the 64 decibel range as far as noise, but the 64 was in the town of Scroon, and to the back of the store where the barred units are, there's no fence, there's no wall, so it's just an open area. It won't take into account the in situ testing or any of the other modifications of this site. And
The
as
64
far,
range just for the HVAC units?
yeah, just for the barred units. And again, noise does not have a compounding effect. So 64 decibels at 20 feet, if you turn the second barred unit on, it's not an additional 64 decibels. So it's not a 128 total. And it might only increase it 3 to 4 decibels. But again, the village doesn't have, at least in my understanding, a specific noise ordinance for decibel ratings. So we wouldn't be mitigating to anything other than kind of the guidelines under seeker, and the seeker, negative declaration has already been issued. So the HVAC units are going to be, whether they're along this elevation, they're going to be on the site regardless.
Well, I think we should give a little bit more consideration to that. Possibly adding one of those sound blankets. If they don't come with them, they could probably be retrofitted to be able to adapt to one.
Yeah, you could put them on the fence. Yeah, I mean, if you want to take decibel readings at the property line, you would effectively just be mitigating to roughly 6 decibels. If you want sound blankets for the length of the wall or the length of the fence where the HVAC units are, I mean, that's also something we can do.
I think we need to do everything we can to mitigate the sound trespass as opposed to light trespass to the neighbors. We may not have anything specific in our code, but this is why we do this, is to try to get some concessions to make it the least possible intrusion to neighbors. So I think we can work through that.
And maybe this information, the catalog cuts, they say enhanced sound absorption, they say quiet operation in another place. I suspect it has a pretty decent sound rating. I was a little, I guess mortified isn't the right word, but surprised when I got to the sound data. It had TBD, to be determined. Maybe that was when this was being manufactured and put out there 2 years ago, and maybe they do have that sound information. A call to their factory might jingle up an answer, but just to keep it in context, the two condenser units were 52, and I believe 58 decibels, if I remember correctly. So a little quieter, but you would expect those versus an HVAC unit.
Deb, just to add to your comment about it's not in the code, in 355-36, we do say protection of adjacent properties against noise, glare, unsightliness. So we do address unsightly noise. So I agree with the blankets and what you're saying.
Again, the only mitigation I can consider that we haven't already done would be the blanket. So if the, measuring something. So
Chuck,
what I would propose doing is where the condensing unit meets the fence to the second HVAC unit is 36 feet. I would be willing to install the blanket for that 36 feet because those are the only areas where there's noise generating equipment on the property line with 111 Helderberg.
That sounds good. I mean, like I said, I think this is why we're doing this. We're working through this to mitigate as much as possible. I mean, we can't mitigate everything, but as much as possible, the impact on the neighboring homes.
Were there other questions or would you like me to?
This is Dan. I had one comment. I mean, typically a noise barrier or in those noise blankets, as you're talking about, they're used a lot for construction. And as long as the blanket breaks the line of sight between the noise, what's generating the noise and the receiver, then you have abatement. So if you're from where your unit is that's generating the noise, and if you extend the blanket far enough so that it breaks the line of sight between the condenser and the adjacent property, then you should have some abatement. So you might have to go a little bit more than 36 feet. It shouldn't be very much further, but you should really look at drawing a line between the condensing unit and the adjacent property at an angle. What's the usable space in the adjacent property to see where the limit of the blanket would extend to.
You want the blanket, I mean, you want the blanket the length of the building?
No. Can you put the cursor over what the?
So what I was saying is, from this unit to this unit is 36 feet.
Right.
So you want to continue it?
If you take a line from the condensing unit to the bottom there and at an angle projected to the Carroll's backyard, you're going to have maybe like a 45-degree angle or something like that. So that the blanket would actually go a little bit further, because from the source of the noise to where the usable space is in the adjacent property is how sound travels. So the blanket doesn't stop at the end of the condensing unit. It would extend a little further. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to provide.
I'm not saying it would be much longer than 36 feet, but if you take a line from that unit. And,
it looks to be about 45 feet.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep. Okay.
I really think that the retaining wall and the fence are going to add some abatement already, because breaking the line of sight with something solid is how noise walls are designed. I've done it for years. So adding the blanket is only going to add that much more additional abatement, because it makes that cedar fence more impinged.
Yeah, it's like a double layer. It's like wearing a sweater under a raincoat. type.
Right,
You know, your
right.
raincoat keeps you dry and your sweater keeps you warm.
yeah,
Yep,
So-
we're good.
okay.
Thank you. Now, the only other question is, who maintains that fence? Is it
Stewart's
just,
does.
is it going to be weathered, or will you seal it with something, or what was the plan for that? That was another one of Carol's questions. I'm just making sure, because, I don't know that we hit on every single.
I mean, again, the last round of submission or the last round of conversation had kind of no plantings in this area. So the plantings, I think, add some screening between her property and the fence. But it would be natural cedar untreated.
Okay, all right. And you'll maintain that if, one of the slats break or becomes rotten or whatever, Stewart's is going to take care of that.
Yeah, yes, I don't, I personally, it's unlikely I personally will inspect it, but if Carol has a problem, she definitely knows how to reach me.
Well, I don't only mean her fence. I mean, the fence around the dumpster and all that. I mean, that's all going to be maintained by Stewart's, correct?
Yep, it's on our property.
There's someone that's not on mute. Laura, you're not on mute. Could you please mute? We can hear everything that's going on in the background.
So this is probably the last, these are the last changes I highlighted. I think, we'll probably spend some time discussing. The decorative fixture was incorporated in the two driveway entrances. We do, just want to make sure I get so we did do the two decorative fixtures in the driveway. The Altamont Boulevard driveway would be back shielded lights. The Helderberg Ave would not. They would both be an Acorn style fixture that would match the fixture that's in the current DOT area on the corner. In attachment 2, we did provide. Can you see me scrolling? Can you see the lights I'm pulling up?
Yes.
Okay. So the first lights were the lights on 147 and 67. Again, as indicated on this property is on the southeast corner. On the northeast corner is a cemetery on the historic register, and on the southwest corner is a church on the historic register. Our lighting there was compliant with the SHPO guidelines. And then that lighting is in the 4,000 Kelvin range. And then here is light at the 5,700 Kelvin range. We provided some samples to the board and the public through the link that showed various lighting. This was the kind of 5,700 or 5,000 Kelvin light, and we provided about 6 of them to you. What we were able to do after that is, can you see the photo that's now across my screen?
Yes.
This is the hue of light in the 4,000 Kelvin range. And this is the light that we would be installing, at our proposed project in Altamont. So it would match essentially the light at the 147 and 67 location. Obviously, the big difference between that proposed lighting and the proposed lighting scheme here, the canopy in that situation is larger. All 4 sides of the building are visible in their circulation. Obviously, we have no lights on the southern elevation that face 111 Helderberg. We removed the yard light and relocated the dumpster. So again, this is the lighting scheme as proposed today.
It looks, Chuck, this is John.
Hang on a second, John. Someone has to mute themselves. Laura, I believe, and Rob, please mute yourself, or we're going to have to ask you to leave the meeting.
After our last meeting, Chuck, I went up to 147.67, and I got up there just after sunset. So it wasn't totally dark, but it was dark enough. I was pleasantly surprised at the lighting in the gas canopy. But looking at your pictures here, the gas canopy looks similar as I remember it in the pictures I took. But the store, as I remember it, as my pictures show, is a heck of a lot brighter than what I see in this picture. I took pictures from the gas canopy and in front of Stewart's and across the street, kitty corner at the walk-in health clinic. And from the health clinic, it just had a glow at night. And I don't want that in Altamont. If that's what's going to be, I don't think it's going to look good at all.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at that location, the most bright thing I saw at the intersection was the blue light in the urgent care signage, less the Stewart's. I mean, the Stewart's really isn't even visible as you approach from the east. You have to remember that this building is, the 147 and 67 building is four-sided. So, you know, effectively, you would only get the...
Yeah, you should.
Okay, Laura, you need to mute or we are going to kick you off of this meeting. We cannot understand anything anyone else is saying except for your arguing in the background.
So you would only get this, you know, this would effectively be the elevation that would be seen in Altamont.
How many times did you try to get buildings? You weren't trying to do it during the day.
Can't you cut her out, Deb?
I cannot. I'm asking Carrie to do
Yeah,
it.
Deb, right now, it's not showing that they're on.
Well, you can hear them. They're
I know, but I have muted.
It looked as though she had two windows on. One was muted.
I've only got one. You know what? I'll do that one. She can always come back in.
But she didn't show up. Who you are? You don't want to talk to you?
Jesus.
If anybody knows this person, could you please call them on the phone and tell them that they're interrupting the entire meeting and they're not welcome right now?
Yeah, it's not because I removed, but she's not her. You might be somebody on our meeting.
So, John, to your point, the pumps in Altamont would be angled. So it would be a little different, but I put a box. It would be the two lights interior to the two fueling positions, and then the two on the outside. The building elevations, I mean, this doesn't have the full porch as we're proposing in Altamont. So I don't know, you know, really what mitigation, you know, we could do for
Are the interior lights exactly the same? Because it was extremely bright.
Deb, can I ask a favor, please?
Sure.
Chuck, can you please unshare your screen for a minute so I can see the full list? I'm going through it, but it takes twice as long to see if I can find out where the noise is. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I'm going to put myself on mute for a second.
Everybody go on mute for a second.
I don't have it showing. I have everybody muted.
Laura doesn't shout as muted.
You're right, but she had muted her earlier. There you go. She had 2 lines. I couldn't see the second line. Sorry, guys. Go back. All right, Chuck is okay to go ahead.
Why don't you just kick her off, Carrie?
I did, but there were 2 lines, so I'll get back to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry, everyone.
I just, again, Chuck, I was really very surprised at how bright it was there. When I was out by the road looking face in at the front, when I was across the street at the walk-in clinic, it just seemed to glow at night. And I can't imagine walking up Main Street and seeing that.
Is it the same lumen output under the canopies, Chuck?
The canopy's good. The canopies are more subdued, and that wasn't the problem. The problem is light coming from the building and around the outside of the building.
John, this is Steve. So you're basically saying that the inside of the building was what you're talking about?
Well, when you're standing in front of the building, Steve, looking at it, you're not sure how much of that light is coming from within and outside. I'm just saying the whole thing glowed.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it myself. I just was curious what you were trying to emphasize.
And that's why I asked Chuck if the interior lighting was exactly the same as far as the illuminance at this 67-147 as it's going to be in the new Stewart's. Or if this is going to be brighter like the Stewart's here.
It'll be about the same. What I'm trying to find, I mean, it'll be, there's 5.
That's in a darker place than this will be in. I mean, the setting itself, correct? I mean,
yeah, I mean, those 2 corners, the southwest and the northeast corners are completely dark at night. I mean, the urgent care center is on the northwest corner, which is the former Stewart's, is somewhat illuminated. Again, the largest light issue is the bright blue sign that the urgent care was allowed to put up. All the light here is essentially pointed into the central business district. The lights on the canopy, which, you know, John does not seem to have a problem with, are the most visible lights. We did switch to the decorative fixtures on the outside. What I could do, again, as a kind of a condition, is I would be willing to decrease the number of canopy, or not canopy, I would be willing to decrease the number of soffit lights under the porch. Right now we show 5. I think we could go down to 4. But that's, I mean, you really don't want to get rid of your one over you really don't want to get the one over the front door. As we discussed last time, and I was somewhat wrong, all the parking lots all the parking is to the store. So your site's really not that bright. So.
And again, I'm seeing it, John, your pictures, I'm seeing it against a dark sky with nothing else lit around. This is in the middle of the central business district. You've got Altamont Corners, you've got Ketchum's. The funeral home has some lights. I don't know it would be as stark as the pictures that you sent, but I certainly understand what you're saying. Is there any way we can tint the windows and somehow mitigate the light coming out?
I mean, no. I'm not, I've, for the past, I'm not going to lie, for the past 2 weeks, this is the number one thing I've been banging my head on the wall about, because You know, we went and tried to source to see if we could go to a lower, you know, lower temperature Kelvin light. And, you know, we've made a number of customizations to this site, which we, you know, don't or haven't done in other locations. One of the things we try to do, and you can understand from our perspective with the number of stores we have, is trying to, even if it's not the light isn't the same, even if just the fixture were the same, so that we could have similar fixtures throughout the company and swap components. But we couldn't source the lower Kelvin lighting. I mean,
Can you put up that comparison again? Remember, you put up a lighting comparison that showed the coolness versus the warmness versus remember that chart that you showed?
It wasn't in the last mailing, it was a meeting.
yeah, I did not. I pulled one up, but hold on one second.
Went from like the yellow to the white spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, throwing this out there, their lighting does meet code and in some cases exceeds code. So, you know, I'm not sure how much we can push this, you know, but. You know,
Can you see it now?
No.
Could this be as simple as a different lens cover that has more shielding to it?
Shielding?
Yeah. Brad, you see it now?
Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Yep. So again, our lights are here, and the lights, you know, everyone wanted us to kind of go to are here, the 3,000, and we're at 4,000. The issue is that the lights are individual bulbs, so there's no screen or shield that goes over the fixture. Each light is individually, you know, each bulb is individually set in the row.
I'm just wondering if a translucent lens can be fitted onto that fixture, or is it an option?
No, but each bulb is that like each bulb is made that color.
Okay, but isn't that within like a mounting box? And
Yeah, but the mounting box just shows the bulbs. It doesn't have like there's no cover or slide over it.
and you're sure there isn't an option for that? On page 6 of the catalog is not, I'm just throwing it out there.
Just as a comparison for everybody, the village, the National Grid right now, if and when they change out the lights and go to the LED, they're proposing 4,500. So if you look at the difference between 3,000 and 4,000 or 4,000 and 5,000, and we're going 4,500 to 4,000, Stewart's will be.
Yeah, we'll be less than the village.
It's actually going to be less than what the village, yes, exactly.
Might be less, but there's going to be more bulbs involved. So, you know, you might have lower bulb, but you have more of them, which is going to make a difference.
At a previous meeting, there was discussion that the village had two choices of the 4,500 or like 2,900. I didn't realize it was going to be the higher number. There was a lot of discussion about the lower
I think
number.
it was 3,100 and maybe, yeah, maybe they did say they were going to the 3,100. So, yeah, you're right, Connie. So then we're talking the difference between the 3,000 and 4,000. I mean, 31 is a little bit brighter, but again, to the naked eye, and John, I see what you're saying, to the naked eye, I'm not sure how. I don't want to play the devil's advocate here, but they are meeting code.
They might meet code, but then there's other things as far as that we say that I read before, that as far as appearance. Chuck, again, what bulb is up at the 16747?
So at 167 and 47, it's the 4,000 Kelvin. It's the, you know, I can't circle it, but it's the bulb.
Same as what you're proposing in Altamont.
Correct. Now, if you had continued north, you would have seen, excuse me, the 5700, which puts you, so that's the light at 147 and 29. That's this light. Now, as many have watched this project go through the various stages, we made the reduction at the Zoning Board of Appeals from 5700, which is what I'll call our standard light, to the 4000. So we've, you know, in our defense, already made, you know, one major change from what we would call standard. And if, you know, this board was the only reviewing board, that compromise may be looked at differently. But in this instance, I mean, there's a certain element of I'm kind of stuck because most people have a larger problem with the canopy, which you seem to be fine, you know, okay with. And then the store, which I think if you look at this elevation picture here, the southern and western elevation of the image here, I think that kind of speaks to part of the problem. This light, which is a soffit light here, which would be a wall pack in the Altamont situation, that might be, you know, one of the problem areas. But again, these buildings, both at 147 and 67 and 147 and 29 are 4-sided buildings. The Altamont proposal is really only, you know, the main elevation, the northern elevation, and to a certain extent, the western elevation, while the southern elevation has no lights. And again, with the relocation of the dumpster and the associated light, I mean, we've, to the best of our ability, done what we can to mitigate the light impact of the project.
Chuck, the southern and western elevation, you said that's 4,000 Kelvin.
This one's 5,700. So,
Oh,
so
that's
this
57.
project, yeah, this is the 4,000 Kelvin.
Okay. What is what's the gas islands? What's that canopy?
That's everything is 4,000. So we don't differentiate the bulbs from the fixtures. So
Why does it look so different then, Chuck? I mean, it looked tremendously different no matter how I approach a building from whatever direction. It just seemed like the canopy was a more subdued light, and the building just stood out like a stark white. A big difference.
It's probably associated with the internal light. So John, maybe one of the things that, you know, we have to consider is that on this building, there's roughly 6 or 7 windows and 2 doors. And if you look at the proposal in Altamont, it's not that. I mean, you have 3 windows on the northeast elevation and the door, and then on, you know, the northwest elevation, you only have 1 window. So some of the light that you see emitted from the store operation isn't going to be here because there aren't going to be any windows or as many windows.
Could you go from 5 to 3, 2 on each side and 1 over the door?
Sure.
I mean, that might help. And I agree with you about the internal lighting with windows. Is the store approximately the same size?
The store is a little smaller.
Okay. Same number of internal lights?
Effectively not. I mean, the floor plan, because of the smaller store, the floor plan gets altered a little bit. But ultimately, so what we were, my coworker Steve is sitting here with me, and what we're kind of looking at is, what we would do is we would keep the central light over the door, and then we would space approximately halfway to each end. So just on the interior of each dormer, we would put another soffit mounted light.
Offhand, Chuck, do you know the Kelvin of the interior lights?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't.
Okay, okay. But they would be the same. I mean,
The interior lights are different. I mean, I would guess that they're closer to the 5,000, if not over.
which would be the same in Altamont then.
Yeah.
This is Barb. I do think we need bright lights in the store for security reasons.
Yeah, the store lights wouldn't be affected. So what we're really talking about is these individual, I'm hovering over one that's, you know, the most, I'm hovering over the most, you know, obvious. That's a soffit mounted light. So the soffit mounted light there would be what we're talking about. And those would actually almost essentially be the proposed configuration, and that'll be 3 on the elevation facing outward. So the lights on the outside would be 4,000. The interior lights would probably exceed 5,000. And because of the 4 windows, you know, would essentially light the building.
And don't forget, these lights aren't staying on all night. You know,
That was going to be my question. We asked Chuck last time what the hours of operation were. So how long will these outside lights be on?
I forgot to ask Carmen. I'm fairly confident that the store either opens at 4:30 or 5, and then remains open till midnight, and the hours would be the same.
Okay, yeah, last time I think you told us 5 to 11, so now you think it's midnight. So I guess we'd like to have some confirmation. So then I guess what that leads me to my question is, can the lights have like a dimming feature so that after a certain hour, they're not quite as bright? And again, you have to balance that with the safety security concern that Barb brings up.
The lights would go dark. All lights go dark except for the light over the delivery door a half hour after the store closes and a half hour before the store opens. And that's just so the person coming into the store has a light to walk into. I do, if you give me 1 second.
I mean, we've all been outside Village Hall at times when those lights aren't on and it's dark. So we know we want some kind of lighting for employees or patrons coming in and out of the store.
Oh, agreed. I guess, is there something in between off and full brightness? That,
you mean later at night?
No.
Like later at night?
Yeah.
No, there's not. Because we can't, I mean, the lights are on a timer and a photometric plan or a photocell. So they come on when there's a certain amount of darkness detected. And then otherwise they're on a timer. So
I guess the question would be, who is this I'm trying to think of if there are any homes around there that would be impacted by this bright light. Before midnight and before 4:30. I just keep going back to, I don't know where we're going with this. They meet our code. They've made a concession already about the lights in the front. I think that would help. Is the building color the same, Chuck? Would that maybe make a difference?
The building color is the same. A couple of things. One, on the hours of operation, it's 4:30 to midnight. And those are not proposing to change. I brought up the grading plan because I do think that this is an element where the retaining wall and the fence are of benefit. We are proposing a light above the delivery door. That's the light that would remain on after hours, for lack of a better term. The finished floor in that location is 470.5, which would mean that a light would be atop the delivery door. The delivery door is, I believe, 8 feet, and the light above it's 2 feet. So the height of the light in that area would be around 480. And the top of the fence in that location is 484. So the delivery door light is approximately 4 feet lower than the top of the fence to 111 Helderberg. So as far as shielding the lights, I mean, that light would be the most impact or the closest light to Carol's property on that side. So that's the light that would stay on and go off.
And that would really be no different than having your neighbor leave their light on all night.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, and again, because they're downcast lights and she would essentially be over them, she wouldn't see them. So then you've eliminated 2 of the soffit lights along the that front elevation. And that's, I mean,
So you're eliminating 8,000 luminance then, right? If each of those soffit lights are 4,000?
I don't think it's linear.
Oh, okay.
Because you would be, we look at it as more of like a foot candle than a lumen. I mean, there is a conversion, but I mean, you're basically compressing the foot candles to 2 areas versus
5.
or 3 areas versus 5.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, this is Allison. It might be helpful just, at this point to actually, look at the standard that we have in our zoning law for special use permit, relevant to glare. I'm looking at 355-35E6. And you're talking about the use and proposed design of the building and site facilities are appropriate in that location and have incorporated reasonable efforts to harmonize with surrounding uses and mitigate any adverse impacts on surrounding uses, including but not limited to, and you have glare included in that standard. So for special use permit, you're really looking at, have they incorporated reasonable efforts to harmonize with the surrounding uses and mitigate adverse impact on surrounding uses.
Which, thank you, Allison, which is why, I was trying to get to that saying, they do meet our code and they've actually done one step better than what we say they can have. So do we as a group feel that they've mitigated in every way possible the impact on surrounding areas and tried to harmonize with the surrounding area? Remembering there are other businesses in that area. There's Altamont Corners, there's the home front, there's Veronica's. Those aren't all dark all the time.
I think by eliminating the 2 soffit lights, he met that the standard.
Well, I think they have also, and one point that hasn't been mentioned, it still needs to remain safe. There's going to be a lot of pedestrian potential conflicts with vehicles and in the front of that store, and it still needs to be lit well enough so that people can see.
I agree with Dan. I think it's important for the security lighting. And I do think that Stewart's has come back, you know, and they're doing the best they can to accommodate us. And I think the plan as it is now is a good plan.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
does
this is Steve.
everybody agree we can move on from the lighting part here?
Yeah, but I got, this is Steve. I've got one thing I wanted to say that I think one of the issues that maybe we're all having to a certain extent is this is a completely different style building than what we have there now. And when you start to try to compare lighting and visual from a brick building that's been there for a long time, which may look obviously different than what Stewart's is proposing, may have something to do with, so at least in my mind, the lighting aspect of it. So I think Stewart's has done everything they possibly could with what's been handed to them on that lot with the lighting.
Was that a motion?
No.
Hey Chuck, I do have,
Sorry, just my computer glitched or something. I thought I heard a motion.
Chuck, one question. The 2 examples up north here, do they have as deep of a front porch as is being proposed here?
They don't. They only have they have what the shorter porches, so only kind of like the gable on a, you know, with the columns. And again, that's what I'm trying to get at. I mean, there's circulation around all 4 sides of those buildings. So the lighting's just different. I mean, they have more yard lights. They have, I mean, just the whole thing it's different.
The reason I ask that is that 4,000 Kelvin store up in Charlton, you know, the bottom right picture is where it looks most illuminated, and a lot of that is reflecting off of possibly white siding. Are we still talking white siding here, or did we talk about gray last time?
No, we kept the lighter siding because we went to a darker stone.
Okay. But the
Yeah,
porch
if
does
you
have
head into
somewhat
like
of
if you
That's
head
what
into a gray building, I mean, that's dark with the
Okay.
dark stone.
I tried to make a point with the porch that it somewhat envelops some of the light from going upward and outward to some degree.
I agree, Brad. Good point. Can we move on from the lighting?
Sounds good, Deb.
Chuck, have you summarized all the changes that you had just sent to us? I'm not even sure where we left off now.
Yes. So basically, I mean, despite, you know, significant conversation, I mean, the 3 changes are the 5 soffit lights along the northeast elevation will be changed to 3. A 45-foot sound blanket will be added, measured from the building corner to the southeast along 111 Hildeberg. And the Andorra juniper will be selected as the planting along Altamont Boulevard, provided the New York State DOT is accepting of the plan. I'm sorry. The Andorra juniper will be selected regardless, and then the sidewalk relocation would be contingent upon DOT's accepting of the plan.
And that includes the benches.
Correct, which will be put on concrete pads.
Okay, that's what I had too. Okay. Brad,
Can we Clarify the color of the building. It's going to be this tan, if you will.
Correct.
Is it cobblestone is tan with a darker tan for the scallops?
It would be a darker, it would be a cobblestone.
Yeah, I didn't know what cobblestone and Monterey taupe were in Crayola talk. Maybe that is Crayola.
Enough HGTV, Connie.
Yeah, I mean, it scans in,
Yeah, it's tough.
just kind of put on a, not the, it's put on like a yellowish background. It's kind of, it's series of beiges, I guess you would say.
The building that's in, I don't know what you consider it, Latham or Loudonville?
That's yellow.
Yeah, is that yellow or is that a tan? Because I went by there the other day. I was going somewhere and I love the color of their stone.
So the one on Loudon Road is yellow. The one on Wade Road is tan.
Yeah, I think that was on Loudon.
Where Hoffman's used to be?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that building is actually yellow.
Okay. Does that help at all, Connie, or?
I guess I was thinking with the stone, I didn't know, I thought we had talked about like a light gray for the building and a darker gray for the scallops. But
we had talked about that. I think because we had mentioned at one point the blue stone or something, maybe that's why they went back to the tan.
That's exactly. So we came as close as we could to the bluestone with the stone. What we're willing to do is swap the scallop siding for a darker gray, and leave the building tan. Cobblestone.
What color is the roof, Joe?
What?
What color is the roof? The shingles.
It's dark gray.
It's slate, right, or something?
It's estate gray.
Yeah,
You're talking about eliminating the fish scales and just changing them to a colored regular siding?
No, making them dark gray.
Okay, still fish scales.
Still the scallops, yep. I think that would kind of look nice with the dark gray roof. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I agree.
Chuck, do you still have those Queen Anne's posts for the dormers? They seem gone now.
Yeah, we removed those.
And are you doing the column bases like we talked about down on the porch?
Oh, we looked at that deal. We took that out. The concern was that it creates more of a trip. You're talking about the crown, kind of the match. This area here.
Yes.
Yeah, we looked at it and we would rather not do it because it extends the column, we think, too far and doesn't have the perceived benefit. I mean, it's just a view. Real.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is a piece of FIPON that has a hole in it that matches the column diameter, but doesn't go out as far as the stone does. It's a white polystyrene column base.
So you would just basically, like, that last course of stone would be raised 4 or 6 inches and something, and then the FIPON would be that thickness?
Or there's a concrete on top of it, and then you put the, the FIPON on top of that, or,
I guess
Yeah,
I just don't
I
see the
didn't-
benefit of it.
Brad, this is Dean. Brad, just to clarify, those are not round columns. to
Correct.
clarify, to make sure you understood that. Yeah, you had said round.
Oh, those aren't round columns. They're square?
No, they're square.
Okay.
Yes, again, Steve is sitting here, who's built more, built physically more Stewarts than I. And he says that that is not something we want to do. So we're
Okay. I was
gonna,
thinking they were circular.
oh, okay. That's all right, Brad. I thought that there, was a whole porch extended through them last time, so we all make mistakes.
I have a
So
question.
we're still thinking that we're thinking now are tan and gray. Do they match? I need Joanna or somebody here.
Yeah.
I think it'd look better than white.
Oh, I think it would look better than white.
Well, the scallops were going to be either a dark tan
Or dark gray.
or dark gray. I
I
don't
thought
know.
Chuck said light gray with the roof dark gray.
No, I was of the dark gray, scalloped.
Right.
Okay. To match the roof then.
Yeah.
Well, once we're off the color, I have a color question, Deb. On Chuck, you've been so agreeable on many things. When we spoke about it at the last meeting or the meeting before, you seemed to say no quick. What's wrong with changing the bollards to be more aesthetically pleasing than a piece of metal or something coming up to be?
So again, I brought this up, and we have a group of people that, although I'm the one that says yes or no, and I appreciate you saying I'm agreeable. That's the nicest or closest thing to a compliment I've gotten in a while. But the problem we have with the bollards is that, first of all, the darker gray building will effectively hide them, or the darker gray stone. But the other issue is that if we special order them and the sleeve gets cracked, then we're special ordering. Like, we would rather have replacements kind of stocked so that we can swap them out when they break versus special ordering again, individual components.
And they have to be there because of the front porch?
Yeah, I mean, you would be surprised at how many buildings get hit even with bollards, but it does happen.
No, I would not be surprised at all. I jog. I know how people drive.
I guess one way around that dilemma, though, Chuck, is to add more decorative bollards so that you'll have a supply besides the one store.
But then you would feel less special, John.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with that, John, but they're going to be a dark gray. They're going to match the stone, basically. Okay. Do we have an agreement on color? I'm still kind of wondering if tan and dark gray go together, or if we just want the tan and then a dark color taupe scallop. I don't know.
What about a lighter gray?
Building color
Mm-hmm.
and then dark gray
The
scallop?
darker gray?
I kind of thought after last meeting, that's what we were leaning towards.
I did too, but like I said, I think we might have thrown the wrench in that when somebody, and it might have been me, sorry, said something about bluestone. But I'm not sure that wouldn't go. I'm, a light gray building with dark gray scallops with that bluestone grayish color. I don't know. What's everybody thinking? Scott or Chuck, would that be something you could do?
How about a pearl gray?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about I'm sorry, we
We're
pulled up
talking about the siding now.
Yeah, I mean, Pearl gray,
Yeah, pearl gray and then dark gray scallops.
Columns would still be white.
Yeah. Which you're going with the Victorian theme then with 3 colors. Even though we're not supposed to go by one theme.
yeah, so pearl gray, with a gray slate scaffold or gray slate scaffold. Sorry.
Easy for you to say. The scallops, yes.
Pearl gray with a gray slate scallop.
Yes.
Sorry.
What does everybody think? Everybody okay with that? We're not gonna keep putting these guys through the ringer like this. This is like we're changing
I
it
think
every
it
time.
sounds good with the white columns and trim.
Everybody
I'm
else
for
okay?
that.
Okay. Connie?
Yeah, I like that.
Steve?
I'm for that.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Hey, we agreed on something.
All right. I think at this point we may have already hashed everything out. I'm not sure.
One thing I got.
John, go ahead.
We have all night. I brought this up before, but in the report, Barton Lujudis, with regards to the stream, said there was moderate wear or washout or erosion, however they put it. I still think that they ought to put gabions in that area. There's gabions above, behind Carol's house, gabions below the existing Stewart's, and in that one area, the house are taken down, there's nothing. And I think that now is the time to put the gabions in instead of waiting until the moderate erosion goes to severe erosion, and something has to be done after the store is up.
Do we need to go on the stream bed to do that? Because if we do, then that's going to be a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, you do.
So then,
Well, I was under the impression that between Dan's conversation and Brad's conversation at the last meeting, that the proposed planting scheme was the more desired mechanism for handling this than, the gabions. If one of those two gentlemen can clarify.
Yeah,
I thought Brad said that, and I thought Dan said that as well last time.
Yeah, I'll add to this. I've dealt with the Corps of Engineers and DEC for 36 years. They do not want hard materials like gabions or anything else when the green approach can be taken. So unless it's a flood control project, the permitting would be very difficult and it would take a long time to justify to get the Corps of Engineers permit to do the work, from my experience. And I think the green approach with the plantings is a far better idea, and it's what's usually promoted by DEC and the Corps of Engineers.
I would concur.
And there's actually mention of green engineering in our code multiple times, as opposed to hardscape or whatever else the other word I want to use, I don't know. But I hear what you're saying, John, but I think the mitigation, at least at this point, by 2 different engineers seems to be the way to go. Okay, so let me move on to, I went through all of our sections, 355, 35, and 355, 36. I think the easiest way to approach this is in those 2 sections, we can refer to Leah's. I actually didn't really look much at Leah's. I went through it on my own and found points that they made sure they did meet our standard, or I still had questions on. So I think the best way to handle this is to ask everyone if there's any areas that they feel that they didn't meet our standard or that they want clarified in those 2 sections. Barb, you want to start? We'll do this in alphabetical order. You muted, Barb?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't think I had it. I'm just looking at my notes and I don't believe I had any questions. I think that Stewart's has met all the requirements. I'm sorry, it's one more page. No, I'm good.
So in your estimation, you feel that they've met the standard or
Yeah.
have mitigated any issues that may have,
I do,
okay.
yes.
Connie?
It might be, I'm sorry, this is Allison, if I can just interrupt one moment. You know, I'm at some point and it sounds like it may be, you know, following this meeting, you know, I'm gonna look to the board to give me some direction as to how they would like me to draft up a decision document that the board could then come back, review, consider, and have a final vote on. So as we go through this, I think, Deb, this is a good approach where we're focusing on, you know, are there any board members who feel there's any particular standards that warrant further discussion, or that they don't feel the documentation in the record establishes the standard's been met. But even if you do feel the standard has been met, you know, feel free to, you know, mention anything specific that you, you know, may have influenced your decision, you know, such as, you know, thinking about mitigating measures, you know, what we talked about tonight with the changes, you know, reducing the number of soffits in the lighting plan. Anything you know, feel is of particular importance that should be incorporated into the board's final findings and decision.
Thank you, Allison. Barb, does that change anything for you?
No, I am pleased with decreasing the lights. I think it's going to be a better decision. I think that, again, Stewart's is doing everything they can to kind of grant our wishes. And no, it doesn't change my mind, but I'm pleased about the lighting.
Okay. Connie?
Okay. So for the first one, you know, it talks about the scale and the physical design of the whole project. I guess I just want to comment that it's been a struggle from the beginning. There have been several hurdles that had to be overcome. First by the village board, and when they did the seeker declaration, even though it ended up being negative, they did have 3 factors that they considered it to have a moderate impact on the village. And then, and those were, with the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use, with the proposed action result in a change of use or intensity of use, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? So the village board did consider all of those to be moderate impact. And then when it went to the zoning, the ZBA board, there were very large variances that had to be addressed, of allowing the gasoline service station on a smaller lot size, building having the building 30 feet closer to Carol's property than the zoning was supposed to allow, and 90 feet closer from the boulevard. And I know we have really struggled in particular with with being 20 feet from Carol's property as opposed to 50, with the noise and the fencing and the landscaping. So I just want to say that this whole process has been a struggle because of the the scale of the project. The other thing was number 6. Somebody read it tonight, but I think we've made some good progress with the noise and lighting. When I wrote my notes up before, we were still struggling with those. And the last one was number 8 in terms of property value. I know at some point we received a letter from Carol indicating concerns. She had discussions with the real estate folks about the decrease in her negative impact on her property value.
Do you feel that what we've struggled with has been mitigated in the best possible way?
I think we've struggled with it, and I mitigated as much as we've been able to. But it's been difficult to meet everyone's, make the project be satisfactory for everyone, and that's been very difficult.
It has been, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, unfortunately and unfortunately, there are just some things that we can and can't do based on our zoning laws, but do you have anything else? Anything else you want to add, or? I'm just trying to come up with something for Allison to write up on a decision document, you know, we're not giving reasons for why we came to our conclusions, but if we feel that they've met our standard, I don't know that we can go too much further unless you have some substantial evidence that they've done it.
Right.
And I don't mean just you, Connie, anyone.
Right.
Am I explaining that correctly, Allison?
Yes. Essentially, you know, the board, you know, it has to base its decision on the evidence in the record. In the record, either that they've met the standard, you know, through the mitigative features that have been incorporated into the project design, or the conditions, you know, that they're voluntarily agreeing to or that we can impose on the approval, or there's substantial evidence in the record to show they have not met the standard of our zoning law. The decision has to be based on the evidence in the record. There's the law in New York is clear that, you know, generalized objection, you know, to the project or generalized concerns, you know, do not provide a proper basis to deny a special use permit where we have a specific criteria in our law that should guide the decision making.
Okay. Okay. John.
I was a little reticent coming in, but I think mostly about the lighting. Chuck helped me with that a bit. I think the color of the building is going to help a little bit too, rather than stark white as far as standing out. So I was glad that the color had changed to a lighter gray. I'm all set the way we discussed it.
Thank you, John. Steve?
Since this project first was introduced, I don't know, maybe it was 2014, 2015, and
15, yep.
Was it 15? Okay. When Stewart's came to us originally and asked, that we were very reticent with the idea that the building was too big. And they went back and went through to try to accommodate to the best of their ability with the village by getting the, you know, the zoning variances that they needed to get and working with us. I agree with everybody on this board that this is a very difficult decision, and not everybody's going to be happy with whatever decision that we come up with. But I have found that my biggest issues was addressing lighting, which I think Stewart's has done. I think they've done an excellent job as far as noise. I do understand the impact that the neighborhood is going to have, but I think they've done everything they can to try to mitigate that in the best of their ability. I agree with John with the color. I think they've tried to work and they've listened to as much as possible to what the village wants and what we want. So I'm comfortable with what they've done up to this point.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'm up, and I hate to tell you all this, but I've got 3 sheets of stuff that I wrote. So just let me start. Again, I agree with everybody, what everyone's saying. You know, I think that Stewart's has put their best foot forward. I know we're not going to please everybody. I know we're going to probably show up again in a local paper. Hopefully it won't be as nasty as this last week. But I'll try to go through a few of the points that I found to be important. And I went as far back as 35520. 5B, it suggests the use of design features such as porches, cupolas. Yep, they're using both. 6A of that same section, exterior materials, new construction should be compatible with those used traditionally in the village. Wood simulated, clapboard, they're doing that. Vinyl, brick or stone, man-made or processed. Their architectural features are similar to what we have in the village. 7A, and this I need some clarification on, Brad. The roof pitch and scale, I believe, we say it's a minimum of 5 and 12. They have 6 and 12. They meet that, correct? You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, that's correct. The 6 and 12 will be a little steeper and a better look for that type of roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again,
Deb, this is Dean.
Dean.
Excuse me, Deb. Sorry, this is Dean. Just since we're talking about the pitch.
Yep.
Hello. Very, very minor, but just for the record, they're showing 8 on 12 for the cupolas and the dormer over the entrance. That's actually incorrect. That is actually 6 on 12 as well. That should be corrected.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
I think it's just a typo.
Got that, Chuck? Okay. Again.
Yeah, we'll double check it and revise.
Okay. Again, in same section, 7B, peaked or sloped roof with dormers and cupolas are encouraged. They're doing that. Porches and other architectural elements are encouraged. They're doing that. 35522, no, sorry, I crossed that one out. 35535, one question I have all the conditions of the ZBA been met? Do we know the answer to that?
So the conditions from the ZBA were to limit the hours of pickups and delivery,
Right.
which obviously we can't meet till we open.
Yeah.
Secondly was the landscape plan to be developed by a registered landscape architect. That has been satisfied.
Well, that's kind of still in plan right now, isn't it?
Well, this is Allison. I can speak to that. The condition from the ZBA was that the applicant would provide the opinion of a qualified professional as to what the, best or most appropriate plantings would be, taking into account the physical characteristics and limitations on the site, and what species could provide the most screening, taking into account maturity, at what level of maturity they could be planted. So, Stewart's did provide the opinion from, the qualified professional early on in this process before the planning board. The planning board's taken it upon themselves to also utilize their own recommendations from their own professional consultants, Barton and LaJudas, and we also have Dan, who was able to provide us with professional opinion on the landscaping plan. And the way this review has progressed, I mean, the planning board, with the assistance of its professional consultants, has looked at that opinion from the applicant, and they've taken into account the physical characteristics of the site, including the plantings that are already located on 111 Helderberg, that provide some shading. You know, all of that had to be taken into account in determining what could be a viable and appropriate species for that landscaping plan, and then what level of maturity, you know, space-wise could be put in that area. Or, you know, on Altamont Boulevard, you know, what would work with, you know, being so close to the roadway and site distance limitations. So, you know, that has been part of this planning board's review since the beginning.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just, you know, I just wanted to make sure. So then 355-35E, they've added many architectural characteristics. It'll help to mitigate the size of the parking lot with various plantings. The vehicular traffic, I think the way they've got the parking arranged will help with pedestrian safety as well as safety backing in and out. The sight lines appear to be better. They've moved some mechanics away from 111 Helderberg. The one condenser unit that it remains, they're having an 8-foot wall with a cedar fence on top of it, and now we've agreed to a sound blanket. So you know, again, I think they're meeting everything there. The nature and intensity of operations, it shouldn't be any more objectionable to the surrounding area than the one that's there now. The operating hours will be the same. You know, I think the store will look even a little better. The store's been there since 1980, so I'm not sure how that could interfere too much more than what it already does. As far as any type of religious institutions or anything like that, there's nothing like that around there. DOT and Stewart submitted a traffic study that was done by Crichton Manning Enterprises. Any increase in traffic seems to be negligible. As far as parking is concerned, village parking allows up to 20% of their parking to be on street or public parking lots. Number 6 of that, they have the addition of scallop peaks, cupolas, brackets, stone veneers, a porch, helps to harmonize with the surrounding area. The stormwater plan has been okayed by both BNL and our DPW. Impact of use that should not interfere with the growth of the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I hope that it encourages more businesses to come into our neighborhood, which is certainly part of the comprehensive plan. As Connie mentioned, and you know, this is one of my things I haven't read here, it cannot be overlooked that it will affect the real estate value of Carol's home. However, I think Stewart's has worked with Carol, and I believe will continue to work with Carol to mitigate its effects on her property in every way possible. Let's see, and it does conform with our comprehensive plan as decided by the village law board and local law too. It offers a greater selection of goods to customers. It's more pedestrian and vehicular friendly, like I mentioned before. The ingress and egress are going to be a lot better. They're adding sidewalks, they're adding benches. The lighting now has changed to be more conformed to what we would normally have in a village. They've added bike racks, which is something that our code suggests. They have one freestanding sign. They have no signs on the building or on the roof of the building. The delivery and trash pickup has been agreed to between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekends. That should help eliminate noise in the surrounding neighborhoods. Other than that, you know, I can keep going down, you know, on that section. And K, the fence, you know, they've added a fence, a berm, trees, wall. They're moving the dumpster and the light, the light will move as well when that dumpster moves. Am I boring anybody yet? Again, I'm still in 355-36 now. The trees and greenery will need to be kept by stewards in good working order. And if anything dies out or is damaged, you know, I'm pretty sure stewards will fix that. I think it, personally, this is my personal opinion, I think it fits it, the new building fits in more with the surrounding area, especially now with the stonework, kind of is like Veronica's in the home front. And, you know, again, something that is really hard on everybody's mind. I know it's, everyone's talking historic. It is outside of the historic district. It's not contiguous with the historic district, but Stewart's has added some features that are more consistent with what you might see in a village. And if you look at 355-20C, one thing that is suggested there is that buildings should add a distinct character all their own, so as to not have one building that looks like the next building that looks like the next building that looks like the next building. And they've done that. They've done that, and yet they've kept it somewhat consistent. Other than that, you know, I think I've made my point and then some. I feel that they've mitigated to the best possible way. And again, you know, I know and I understand not everybody is going to be happy. And like everyone has said here, this is difficult. It's very difficult. And we've endured a lot of criticism, a lot of nastiness, but we've gotten through it. And hopefully people will realize that in the end, it was what was best for the village, whatever decision we come to. I have no idea at this point what decision we're going to come to. But with that, do we want to take a straw poll of sorts to see where we're at and maybe have Allison draw up a decision document and have a special meeting later this week? I see no reason to hold it over any later than this week. It just, you know, at this point, it just seems to be getting nastier and nastier. And like I've said in previous meetings, we're stuck in the mud and we're just slinging mud on each other. I think Stewart's has done what they have to do.
Let's take a vote.
Deb, I
Just
have
to
three
confirm, I'm sorry.
questions. I have 3 questions.
Go ahead, Connie.
One, we talked about the location for the propane exchange last time, and there was some clarification of whether or not it was allowed. I just wanted to confirm that was verified, that can be away from the building.
I can speak to that. I went back and reviewed the minutes from the ZBA when the code enforcement officer's determination on the nature of the use was appealed to the ZBA, and the decision of the ZBA was that this use qualified as a gasoline service station and not as a convenience store. So looking at the plain language of our zoning law, that limitation on the outside display storage area was under the section with supplemental regulations for convenience stores. And there was no parallel provision under gasoline service stations or any kind of language like we had seen in the parking section saying, you know, if you have one use that includes 2 uses, you know, you could look to those other requirements. There's just nothing like that in the plain language of our zoning law. And I did speak with Lance about this, and it seemed pretty clear to both of us that that requirement did not apply to gasoline service stations.
Thank you.
Along Connie's question, and Chuck, you can answer this. Are there going to be any type of bollards or anything along to protect those storage tanks?
There are bollards proposed on the outside of the propane exchange. Those are per code. That's the building code, not the village code.
Okay, yeah.
Those are required.
I didn't think I saw those on the plans, but I don't know what every little thing
Yeah,
means.
they're included on S3 on
Oh,
the
okay.
proposed site plan.
Yeah, I think I saw plans.
Did you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've given you guys a lot of paper, unfortunately.
My next question is for Chuck. Those decorative lights at the two entrances, are they also going to be the 4,000 Kelvin?
Hold on one second. Yes, they will both be 4,000 Kelvin.
Okay. But they might be less.
The Altamont Boulevard light will be back shielded. The Helderberg light will not, which will, one of the reasons we're willing to decrease the number of soffit lights is because that's a 360-degree globe.
Okay.
That could be brighter than the existing one in the DOT section?
Unfortunately, we're not able to get the DOT spec. So we're just kind of winging it.
You had another question, Connie?
Yeah, and the last one, you know, we have the demolition plan, but is there or should there be hours of operation for the demolition? Should there be some kind of limitation?
I would defer to Lance on this because it's more of a village.
I think our code,
Yeah, you probably delineate the hours of operation for construction activities. You know,
I don't remember exactly where it is, but I think it's in our code.
Yeah, I looked under demolition. I searched a couple of different ways. I didn't find anything.
It
So
might just be generalized under construction though. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Lance, do you know offhand? Lance, did you leave us or are you on mute?
I see him.
He's
You hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I believe there is something in the code that regarding hours of operation, but we're going to, I've already talked to Chuck's foreman, I've talked to the person that's going to do the demolition. We're going to work within those confines with the neighborhood involved. You know, we're going to be very sensitive to that. That answer the question, Connie?
Yes.
Okay.
And Stewart's did represent, I think in one of its first submissions, maybe back in April, they did acknowledge that they would have to submit a full demolition plan with their application for the demolition permit, which would be reviewed by the building department.
Okay.
We've already recognized that'll be a requirement before they would get the permit.
And I had just one other comment, suggestion, idea. You know, we talk about, it's obviously been very, very important to everyone, myself included, the character of the village of Altamont and its history is very important. And I was wondering if there's been any outreach by stewards to the Altamont Archives and Museum. And what I'm referencing is in that Brunswick store that we were looking at, there was a beautiful plaque set up inside the building that recognized a particular house. Could something similar be designed to recognize the history of that particular corner, which goes back to the 1700s, and just the significant points about Altamont? It was a plaque that's inside the building. I'm sure Chuck knows.
I had actually suggested something similar to that, Connie, not only representing the historic nature of that corner, but that house that's going to be demolished, and also possibly using some material from that house to create that plaque. Chuck?
So, yeah, no, we were just talking about the asbestos abatement and then selective. So we could have someone do the selective demolition now. But that's the first I heard of historic Altamont. If someone could provide me a contact, I'll do a plaque or some writing, you know. I know that actually Carol on Tuesday of last week or so gave me kind of a lesson on the Severson, the inn, and then the construction of the house, the
Right.
reason there's no parking, stuff like that. So if someone provides me a contact, I'll get some type of signage made.
Connie, can you take that?
Okay, come on
I
up.
am, just so everyone, and I try and manage expectations on some of these things. Because we decreased the size of the store, we're somewhat limited with where inside the store something like this could go. But I think it would probably be appropriate to put on the picnic area outside.
Sure.
Yep.
That sounds like a great idea.
I like that idea. I think it would be very nice.
Okay, where were we? Does anybody have anything else they want to add at this point, before we take sort of a vote as to whether or not what direction we want Allison to take this?
Yeah, and just to make clear for the record, all the board would be doing tonight is, and I think it's sounding as though there's a consensus right now that I would get direction to draft up a decision document with the findings everyone discussed tonight, and also just reflecting the deliberations we've had thus far as to see how we got to the building design, where we are, the lighting plan, how we are, and that would be incorporated into findings that I could bring back as a draft that the board would have an opportunity to review and then vote on at a future meeting.
Is everybody okay with that? So basically what we're saying is we all agree that we would like Allison to proceed with this decision document, that we think we've come to a decision. I'm not hearing anybody.
Yes.
Yes. I agree. Sorry, I wasn't
Definitely.
here.
Okay,
Okay, so I have the direction. I can go and start drafting that decision document with findings. And I can get started on that right away. If it's up to the board, as far as timing, if we are thinking of scheduling another special meeting to have that vote, or you tell me. And I think Deb, you're on mute, Deb.
how'd that happen? Carrie, did you do that to me?
No, I did not.
I would like to have another special meeting this week. Allison, though, it's up to you. Could you have that done in time? If we said, today's Monday? I mean, could everybody, Thursday, if we said Thursday?
I have a meeting Thursday, so I won't be here.
Well, how does everybody's schedule look for next week? I don't want to push Allison too hard here.
How about next Monday?
Next Monday makes more sense than later this week.
That works for me.
Are we gonna see what Allison wrote up before the meeting?
Yeah, and that will give me an opportunity to get it to you guys ahead of time, so you have a chance. I'll commit to get it to you. I'll shoot for Thursday, so you have a chance to go over it over the weekend and get me back any comments or suggested revisions that we can
That'd be good, Allison. Yeah.
at the meeting.
So we're talking.
Deb, this is Dean. Deb,
Yes, Dean.
actually, this may be a question for Ginger. Is there a time frame in order to be able to post this for another meeting? The 7-day thing? Does that apply?
No.
Not for a special meeting, I don't
Seems
think.
kind of tight. It's not required for a special meeting?
The requirements for the
All
special,
right.
I believe it's a meeting scheduled a week ahead of time. Notice has to be posted in a public place at least 72 hours before the meeting, and notice transmitted to the news media, but there's no requirement that it be published as a legal notice. So we would do as we've been doing. We would, post it in public places in the village, also on our website, also do the news blast or the email blast to those who have signed up. And we would also provide a copy of that notice to the Altamont Enterprise, but there is no legal requirement to have it published as a legal notice.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Leah.
I'm sorry to interject, but the board has discussed a number of conditions tonight that Allison will likely incorporate into any draft document that she generates for the board later this week. There's one that we're hoping for a little bit of clarification on, just so that the process doesn't slow down. Concerning the plantings and the benches along Altamont Boulevard and possible changing of sidewalk location, all of that that's subject to DOT approval. What we're hoping is that if a condition is crafted, there's some indication of what happens if DOT doesn't approve, so that we're not in a position so that we would have to come back to the board for a formal amendment, but rather the village zoning officer knows what compliance is required at that point. We could update maps accordingly for the files, but we're hoping that there's a, if DOT approves, this is what happens. If DOT will not approve, this is what happens sort of direction.
Thanks, Leah. I think that is a good idea to incorporate into the decision, and just now's the opportunity to make sure that, our understanding of what the board's thinking was is correct. Right now we have shown on the plans the benches along along Altamont Boulevard, which we know DOT still has to review and approve. We discussed tonight about incorporating that species of juniper that Dan had recommended into that plan if the sidewalks, well, I guess here's where I need the clarification. We had talked about incorporating those junipers into that area in between the benches if possible, and also to adjust the location of the sidewalk if possible, so that those benches and plantings could go on the inside of that sidewalk area. But if the New York State DOT does not approve the benches, and if New York State DOT does not approve the modification to the location of the sidewalk, is the kind of default fallback position that we would have that area planted with that same species of juniper.
From Stuart's perspective, that would be the preferred wording of the condition. We're fine with the species of juniper that was recommended. It would just be planted between the edge of the wing curb and the sidewalk that was previously proposed. And that's only if DOT does not permit the sidewalk relocation and expanded green space area.
I think that sounds good, as long as if DOT denies both of our requests, that we have some plantings there, that it's not just this expanse of macadam. Everybody okay with that on the board?
Yes.
Dan, you're our expert. Are you okay?
I agree with that.
I agree.
Yes, we have to have some kind of green space there.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other favor? And I guess it's probably not the first I've asked, but I think on the lower end. Would you be willing to start your meeting at 6 p.m.? I appreciate the accommodation. Unfortunately, I have a conflict that starts at 7. So either start the meeting at 6, or would you like me to have just Leah represent me? Those are the options.
I have no problem starting the meeting at 6.
I don't either.
No problem here.
No problem.
I'm also available.
Okay, good.
I appreciate the consideration.
Okay, then we're gonna have to make, I believe we'll have to make a motion to hold a special meeting next Monday, June 15th at 6 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Ginger, roll call, please.
Okay, Board Member Hukey,
Approve.
Board Member Caruso,
In favor?
Board Member Rue,
In favor?
Board Member Mulfelder,
In favor?
Chairperson Heck.
In favor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, Allison, is there anything I've missed or anything you want to clarify or touch on?
No, I think I have the direction I need from the board. I've been taking notes this whole time, so I will also be incorporating in the conditions that we had discussed. And I appreciate Leah providing an opportunity to get clarification on the landscaping one. And I think I have everything that I need to get that draft.
Okay. Does anyone have any other?
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I've been very disturbed by what's been happening, the negativity, and it's just not good. It's getting, I think, people are getting very upset, and I just want everybody to know that we've worked very, very hard. You know, we all live in the village, and I'm not just talking about the planning board, but also the zoning board, the board of trustees, that I think a little civility is in order, and hopefully we will not be threatened anymore. I think that's very important, especially in what is going on in the world these days. We just need to be a little bit more civil. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. I couldn't agree more. Anyone else have anything to add?
Hey, Deb, do you have a second before you close?
Who said that?
Lance.
No, what, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lance.
I just want clarification, should be in the record, that Jeff Mueller, who is our head of DPW, does not want.
You're fading out.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Oh, really? Can you hear me now?
That's better.
That's
Okay. Look, I just want to say Jeff Mueller, head of DPW. This goes to John. John, Jeff doesn't want us messing around with the stream at all, period. He says it'll be nothing but a nightmare. And I think he talked to Brad about that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Did everybody catch that? Doesn't want to mess around with the stream at all.
Deborah, I just had a couple of minor comments that, and Chuck, I had sent him on the chat line. That's part of Zoom here, but the Jeff Mueller did want a new sewer lateral all the way out to the sewer main in Helderberg, and not to reuse any of the old. The plans still show, you know, retaining what's under the pavement, but the existing lateral will be able to be used by the existing store until they switch over to the new lateral out to the sewer main in Helderberg. And one last thing was the didn't want to see any native fill used around those detention pipes out under the canopy. They're going to need good material. It's only a plastic pipe. It depends on the good material around it. And that was it.
Chuck, you're all okay? You okay with that? You didn't really have a public discussion about that, but you understood
Yeah, no,
those?
I mean, they're pretty technical, pretty straightforward comments.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure it got added to the record. You know, a chat session doesn't necessarily get added to the record.
That's why I wanted to say it.
Okay. With that, I don't think we have minutes from the last meeting yet, so we don't have that to approve. If nobody else has anything, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make them.
I second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Board Member Hukey.
In favor.
Board Member Caruso.
In favor.
Board Member Rue.
In favor.
Board Member Mulder.
I approve.
Chairperson Hess.
In favor. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, nothing will happen violently to any of us. But that remains to be seen. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
Good night.
I know.